Welcome back to Sam and Ham. This is Ham, and today we're going to be doing a Risk of Rain 2 video, specifically a guide on how to play Mercenary. And I want to talk about Mercenary because he's generally regarded as the hardest character in the game, both by the devs and by the community. And I've been playing a lot of him recently, and I think I've pretty much figured out how to master the character, and I kind of want to show what I learned. We're going to be playing here on Monsoon. I am going to have on the Artifact of Command just to kind of show off the items that you're going to be looking out for a little bit better. And your loadout's not going to be too important, but I prefer Rising Thunder and Focused Assault just because it procs the bands better. So the first thing you're going to notice as soon as you drop in, you should be using your Shift and your R as much mobility as you possibly can. One of your biggest perks is going to be getting through levels faster than anybody else. Here you'll see I pick up a Foreign Fruit. It's a very good item to keep an eye out for early just because the healing is going to be pretty useful during the first couple of teleport boss fights. Here as I'm looking for the teleporter spawn, I actually just happened to find a nuke portal, so I figured I'd grab that and show you guys a couple of good useful blue items to keep an eye out for. But as you can kind of see from where I'm fighting this stone golem, you mostly just want to make sure you're constantly applying your exposed debuff because it keeps reducing your cooldowns as much as possible. And that's why I like Focused Assault better, just because it does apply that debuff. Again, in addition to the fact that it procs bans. So this is a pretty simple example of how you probably want to be fighting most bosses. It's just weave your 3-hit combo into your right click, follow it up with your Focused Assault, and then finish it off with your R, the Alpha Strike move. If you keep that up, your burst damage is pretty insane. You can take out most bosses pretty easily. Honestly, the hardest part is dealing with wisps and stuff like this, because flying enemies with ranged attacks are pretty strong. And you'll notice here, I just grab a Harvester Scythe. If you can get any crit going with a Harvester Scythe, it's pretty insane with your Alpha Strike, because then you hit them like 7 times, and you can potentially get back like a ton of health while being invulnerable is pretty insane. And that's the other thing, is you want to try to use your dashes to dodge, one, to dodge out of the way of things, and two, even if you can't dodge out of the way, you can use it for the invulnerability frames. Your R keeps you invulnerable for like 1.5 seconds, and I think your shift is like 0.6 seconds. It's a lot of time to be invulnerable. Definitely something you want to keep an eye out for. After the teleport finishes, we just run around, try to grab as many items as we possibly can. Definitely keeping an eye out for things like crit glasses, and I forget if I get any now, but I always like to get the armor-piercing rounds, just do more damage to bosses, because as you go farther, dealing with bosses is going to be definitely the hardest part of the teleporter event. Between all your dashes, you probably won't have too many issues with the little guys. Early on, they're difficult, like I said earlier, but eventually they're not much of an issue. And here we go to the Bazaar Between Time, and I just want to show off a couple of blue items you're going to keep an eye out for. The first thing you could do is go for Purity, but that is an entirely different build. It reduces your cooldowns. It is very fun, but you're not going to want to go with a crit build on that one because it gives you bad luck and you will never crit again. Instead, I decided to go with a little bit more of a different build, and I want to replace my right click with the Hooks of Heresy. It gives me this cool, like, wind thing. It's still pretty much melee, so obviously worked very well for Mercenary's kit. And it gives you a lot of added crowd control, which is just incredibly useful when you get a ton of higher level enemies in the teleport event. And the other thing I end up picking up is this thing called the Visions of Heresy. It replaces your left click with this little crystal dude. It looks pretty weak, but having a ranged option is incredibly useful once you start getting into the later stuff. Between your hyper mobility now with your Shift and R, and a little bit more safe options with your left and right click, you're gonna see just how strong this build can get. And here, I just kind of want to show off exactly how mobile Mercenary can be if you play him right. He's even more mobile if you actually keep his regular right click, but I decided I wanted to try to show, even just with these two abilities, it's disgustingly good. And while I was up here, I happened to find a nude altar, so I was like, oh, why not? Once you play this game enough, you'll have way more than enough lunar coins to get nude altars whenever you feel like it. But as you can see here, with the new left and right clicks, we don't even need to be in melee sometimes, which is just way safer than constantly diving into melee with everything. Those rats are actually strong. And here I decided to just hold the bridge for a little bit, because it's a good grinding spot before I started the teleporter. Mostly just want to see if I could get a few more items online before I started it. And this is just showing off how strong that AoE with your new right click is going to be. Yeah, here's where I start finally picking up some armor-piercing rounds, just to deal with bosses a little bit better. Here we find another Wandering Vagrant, and you can see just how much easier this one goes than the last one due to our new build. We don't even have to worry about the explosion. And honestly, this run's been so good so far, we haven't really even had to use the Foreign Fruit, but it's just a really good backup plan, just in case. Mercenary doesn't need the damage or mobility, he really just could use the extra health. Surviving. And here you can see we pick up a Kachara's Band, and again, this is going to proc. Since we replaced the right click, it doesn't proc on that anymore, but it does proc on our shift, which is just really strong. As you can see, the AoE potential is just crazy with it. After we finish off the teleporter event, we just go look for some more items. Another good one to keep an eye out for is the Predatory Instincts. It makes your crits give you attack speed, which attack speed actually just speeds up your animations too a lot on Mercenary, so that's very nice, obviously. I always try to recommend getting at least 1 or 2 goat hooves or some mochas to get some more move speed. Again, you're mobile, but finding teleporter events faster is always a good thing. It was actually in the middle of that second level that I remember there was a few other blue items that I hadn't discussed after the first wave, so I just wanted to come back and show those off. The first one is going to be the Strides of Heresy. It actually changes your shift to have even more invulnerability frames than it already did, as well as making it able to go in like pretty much any direction, so you don't have to go in a straight line. It does lower the damage a little bit, but I think it's a worthy trade-off. Again, like I said, you have plenty of damage. You mostly just need to worry about staying alive. And the last one I would also probably keep an eye out for is actually called the Essence of Heresy. I haven't read what it does, but it does make you look weird. I don't know, it's one of those items that are strange. And it also just gives you a ton more health. As you can see, we kind of went from like 300 to 1200, which that's just insane. Just probably one of the best defensive items in the game from what I can tell, but I don't know how to read. But now that we've got pretty much our entire build online, these next couple of waves are just going to be super easy. We've got enough crit, move speed, and safe options that not a problem. As you can see right here, I start off by finding a blood shrine and then immediately following up with the Foreign Fruit. That's how brave I'm feeling at this point, is I can just use that as a free way to make money. Here we head directly to the teleporter event, and you're just going to watch how strong this build gets. There's basically no thought into it at this point. You just hold left click down on what you want to die, eventually press R, press shift when you're dying, and it's already dead. Here we pick up a Ronald's Band just because it'll proc when we press R. And then the only other green item that I think I'm going to really prioritize in this run is a Wax Quail, just because Wax Quail is a really nice mobility item. But at this point, we finish out, get our 9th Lens Maker's Glass, which is all you need for 100% crit with the Scythe and the Predatory Instincts, because they both get 5% each. And then at this point, we're probably just going to go for a lot more armor-piercing rounds, goat hooves, stuff like that. There we do get that Wax Quail I was talking about, another hoove. At this point, we're just flying around the map. Honestly, once you've got 3 hooves, 3 of those, you're pretty online. At this point, I'm feeling so confident defensively that I decided to swap out my Foreign Fruit for a more offensive item. I'd eventually settle on the Royal Capacitor, which is just a stupid good item because it's really short cooldown. And it also procs bands, which is super nice. With the lowered damage on our new shift, it actually doesn't proc bands anymore. So this is a good, easy, consistent way to do so. And then I just pick up a ukulele and a cautious slug, just mostly for shits and giggles, to be honest. And then I'm just going to skip mostly through phases 4 and 5, because it was just so easy. To summarize, we get a backup mags, we get a delicate watch, plasma shrimp. These are all great items to keep an eye out for at this point in the run. The Warhorn is always just a stupid good item to have with the Royal Capacitor, because it's on such a short cooldown. You can get attack speed bonus often. And as you can see, once we get to stage 5, this teleporter boss just doesn't stand a chance. I decided to pick up Shatter Spleen because it's always really good for a crit build. And again, I know you're not going to get all of this in every run unless you run command. This is just like a best case scenario. Obviously, in the average run, your average mercenary can't expect to get quite this good, but there's stuff to keep an eye out for. Between 3D printers and multi-shops, you can usually get at least some choice in what items you get. It's not purely random. As I finish the teleporter spawn, of course, I see the Nude altar, but that's okay. We don't need anything else from Nude. As we make it to the last level, I just kind of want to show off just how much damage we do to these late game enemies. On Monsoon of all difficulties. Just one Q, just by itself, does half that thing's health. Which, of course, kind of sucks, because that was a shield monster, but so the damage doesn't really stick, but... As you can see, we just melt this thing. Between the bleeds and the crits, it doesn't stand much chance. Now, for your average mercenary, these Pillar of Souls, with how tiny they are, would be a real pain. But like I said, with our current build, we actually have some pretty decent ranged options too, so this is not a problem for our build. So we actually charge up 3 of those, and I decided, you know, we have a ton of health. Let's go ahead and try to do one of these Pillar of Bloods, because I didn't quite realize that it works off percent HP. So I panicked just a little bit, but with our new shift, it's pretty easy still. Just gets us down to half, but charges up super fast, so we'll take that as a win. With everything spawned, we decided to go fight Mythrix, because, yeah, what else are you going to do, I guess? And this fight's going to be super easy. Just mostly keep hammering away with your left click, throw your right clicks out whenever he's not dashing, which is the opposite of what I just did there, obviously. It does take a little bit of practice to get your right click down on him. With Mercenary's passive, the double jump, getting over that thing is it's super easy. If you don't feel really confident in it, get another Hapu Feather for another jump, but I don't think you're gonna have much issue. As you can see, phase 1 really is not much of a challenge. We're gonna wipe through this Lunar Chimera horde quite easily as well. Nothing here really stands too much of a chance. As you can see, the Royal Capacitor just kind of one-shots those flying robots, which is just insane. That's the reason I love that one so much. On a 20-second cooldown, you can't beat that. And here for phase 3, he's got a few more additional mechanics that you're going to keep an eye out for that are especially difficult on a melee survivor like Mercenary. Mainly those pillars. You're going to want to keep an eye out for when he goes to do this carousel move. You can use your shift for the iframe still. If you get knocked in the air, just try to drift to the ground as quickly as you can, and then... Never mind, actually, Mercenary still sucks, and I really wouldn't play him unless you really have to. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to playing Acrid.